Bill O'Reilly's here, host of the No Spin News, author of the coming book, Confronting the Presidents, No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Bill, your column on Bill O'Reilly came out over the weekend as well, BillO'Reilly.com. And I thought to myself, if Bill O'Reilly and Saturday Night Live are agreeing on something, then we got to examine exactly what is happening in America's culture.
Well, the protests, as we've established on NewsNation and pretty much anywhere else that's honest, are driven by a very extremist, far-left movement. And we went over who's funding them and all of that, and there's no doubt about it. And then the numbers of students are low. So in New York City at City College, 60% of those arrested were what they call outside agitators, not college students. So when you see this, you say, okay, there are some far-left students. They hate Israel because the far left does across the board. Whatever Israel does is bad. And so they're out there, and they have a right to be out there, but they don't have a right to violate the law or the college administration's rules. And if they do, they should be held to account. That's the story. But when you take a closer look at what's happening at Columbia and other schools, it's indoctrination of students on a much wider scale than Gaza and Israel, and that's what I wrote about in my column entitled Class Warfare. And I took the column, I was inspired by a Steely Dan song, okay, that said, I'm never going back to my old school. You remember that, Leland? You ever hear that song?
No. No, somehow I missed that. But I did read the column, and I thought you made a really interesting point, because you talked about Marist College, which was the working class college founded by monks, I believe, that you attended, and you wrote about in the column this book called Felix Ever After, and it's a trans rights, trans journey book. And the issue that I think you pointed out really correctly was not the inclusion of this opinion in the rights of trans kids or understanding trans kids, which probably is a noble endeavor, but is the exclusion of all the other opinions. And that's what the revolt is against. Look,
number one, you're a square, Leland. You should catch up on your Steely Dan. Number
it's called much worse, Bill.
The bigger story here, it's not the college protests, it's the really big story, is that many working class schools like Marist College, Poughkeepsie, New York, that offered an excellent education and lifted working class kids up into the white collar world, have now gone completely woke. All right? And so this book that you just showed, this is required reading there. And I look back on all the, they call it the common read. They're all left-wing books. There's not Killing Jesus in there or Killing the Killers, my book about terrorism. That doesn't exist, and I'm an alumni, okay? And it's the college is indoctrinating the students to a progressive point of view. There's nothing wrong with the Felix book. Marginalized people should be protected, and the more understanding we have about them, the better. But you don't exclude traditional reading, which is what they're doing at Marist College. And it breaks my heart to say it. I gave that school more than $1 million for scholarships so kids like me way back when could go there. And I'm crazed now that I actually did that, because the school has abandoned all objectivity and all fairness in education. And they're not alone. This probably is the majority of schools around the country. And people need to know it.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.